I invite Father Fraser, ex-principal of St. Xavier's College, Mumbai, and current parish priest of St. Peter's Church, Bandra West, to say a few words. Father Fraser.
Thank you. It's my privilege to be here for this program on Goa and on the environment. And it's especially a joyful occasion when I have as one of the speakers Claude Alvarez, who was with me in college, although a couple of years senior. Claude, you probably don't recognize me, but we were together many years ago. I'm glad that you have taken up this area of environment. It's such an important area for all of us in the world. I think it is all over that fossil is the one thing that we must get rid of. And in spite of having consensus among people in the know of the environment, the ecology, in spite of that, it is so strange that people are still going in for coal and other fossil fuels as their source of energy. So this is really a very timely intervention to bring to our minds what is a real role of coal and fossil fuels in the environment protection movement. I think we have started in Catholic circles with, an awareness of what's happening to the environment. And Laudato Si, of course, gave us that fillip. We have moved from there to trying to change our own lifestyles. And that is, of course, using less plastic or no plastic, using less water, and things like that. So a personal lifestyle change. I think we need to go to that third level, and that is from awareness to lifestyle changes to actual advocacy, because it is government public policy that is really having a fantastic impact, a negative impact on the environment. And I think unfortunately, the best example of this in today's India is Goa. With all the planning that's going on of making Goa the coal hub, we realize that there will be a devastation of the ecology in Goa. And it is for our experts to help us to understand this. We won't go into the technicalities. But I do think that that third area of action, that is advocacy, lobbying, participating in the democratic process of decision-making and public policy, this is something we cannot keep away from. And so I'm glad that we have three experts who will deal with this. Welcome to this webinar. We are very happy that all of you have joined in. God bless.
Thank you, Father. Thank you for that lovely introduction and really setting the context for the talk this evening. As all good things, we start with a little prayer. May I request Jenny Martins to lead us in a short prayer? Jenny, just unmute yourself before you start, please.
He's watching on my.
Everybody else, kindly mute yourself, please. Thank you.
All-powerful God, you are present in the whole universe and in the smallest of your creatures. Pour out upon us the power of your love, that we may protect life and beauty. Fill us with peace, that we may live as brothers and sisters, harming no one. Bring healing to our lives, that we may protect the world and not to prey on it, that we may sow beauty and not pollution and destruction. Teach us to discover the worth of each thing and to recognize that we are profoundly united with every creature. Amen.
Amen. Mining coal and other necessary evils, an introductory talk by our three special guests at the forefront of the efforts to save Goa from the harmful repercussions of three infrastructure projects. These projects were approved by the central government during the lockdown and without due consideration to irreversible damage that will affect not just the environment, but also the health and livelihoods of the local people. So what can you all, my dear good people, what can you do for the land you love? Let's hear first from our guest, Carleen De Mello from Save Moreland. Carleen is a co-volunteer of the Save Moreland campaign, a lawyer by profession. Carleen, please share the story behind Save Moreland. What is your role? What is the campaign doing? And what are the plans for the immediate future? How can we be of help? Carleen?
Okay, so a very warm good evening to all of you. And before I get started about the Save Moreland campaign and the issues, I would just like to thank Sonal and the entire Care for Creations team for hosting this discussion and for giving us this opportunity to hopefully spread some more awareness and reach some more people. So thank you very much for giving us this platform. Now, I joined the Save Moreland campaign as a media volunteer and for the purpose of legal advice. And if I were to describe to you what the campaign is about, I would describe it as a citizen-led movement that is largely powered by the young people of Goa for the purpose of creating awareness with regards to these three infrastructure projects and the fact that they are threatening the very existence of the protected area and the forests in Morle. Now, the main goal of the campaign is simple. We want a total revocation of all three projects. Now, for those of us who might not be aware, the three projects are as follows. You have the widening of the national highway, which connects Goa and Karnataka. Now, interestingly, the Karnataka government has decided that they will not go ahead with that part of the project, but the Goa government has not followed the same logic. The second project is the laying of a transmission line. And for this project, they have already felled around 2,700 trees for the construction of a substation. And we received some good news today. We received the news that the construction license for this substation has been revoked by the High Court. So that's some good news. But the projects are continuing outside the protected area. Now, the third project is the doubling of the railway line, which is also going ahead in different parts of Goa, and the people are having to come out and oppose the work that's going on multiple occasions. All the three projects are passing through the same forest, but they are being passed in a very piecemeal manner by dividing them into smaller proposals. And the land that is required by these projects is huge. It requires over 250 hectares of land, out of which 170 hectares of this land lies in the protected area, and the felling of over 70,000 trees, which is a conservative estimate. So some of the major issues with regards to these projects are, first of all, there is a legal concern and a petition has been filed because it violates sections 29 and 35 of the Wildlife Protection Act. And I'm really looking forward to listen to Mr. Claude Alvarez's perspective on these issues and to really know what his perspective is, because Goa Foundation has been fighting the good fight for so many decades and they have been doing such a good job. So I'm looking forward to listening to his perspective. Apart from the legal aspect of there being no due process being followed and the fact that there is no cumulative impact assessment to actually ascertain how much of damage is actually going to result from these 3 projects. There is also an environmental cost that we are going to be paying in terms of the fact that this is a biodiversity hotspot and a part of the Western Ghats. And the international panel on climate change has actually reported that this is one of the most resilient to climate change. And being a coastal state, we need that sort of resilience because we will experience flooding in the near future if we are not careful, and nobody wants that. And then there is the added issue of there being so many different species, many of which are endemic, who will lose their homes. So the environmental concern is pretty significant. In addition to this, there is definitely a health concern. If the coronavirus and the pandemic has not taught us anything, we know that there are certain parts of the forest and wildlife that we shouldn't be contacting because zoonotic diseases can spread through this kind of contact. And also the fact that all these projects are aimed at the easy transit of coal. And there are parts of Goa that already experiences this kind of particulate pollution that arises from the transportation of coal. And it is really unfortunate that the tiny state of Goa has to endure this kind of development. It's definitely not sustainable. The final concern is, of course, it's an economic issue because Goa depends on tourism, and this area is definitely a tourist destination with Dudhsagar. And a number of families will lose their livelihoods as a result of this. So it is not economically prudent either. Now, what has the campaign been doing is essentially we've been creating awareness through the use of social media. And we've been using art to communicate our scientific-based concerns. Our concerns are based in science, and we've been using art to basically communicate this. Not only does the campaign create art, because we have a number of artists and illustrators that are working with us, but we receive art from so many people, young people, students, children, people of all ages have been contributing art. They have been writing poems, composing songs. People have been making documentaries on the wildlife of Goa. There has been a huge circulation of art to bring awareness to this issue. Apart from the art, we've also been hosting regular webinars to showcase the legal and the ecological ramifications of these projects. Not only this, the campaign has coordinated several petitions to the CEC, the NVWL, the MOEFCC, as well as to our elected representatives, so that they could effectively represent us and our concerns. And these representations are not only from the campaign, but they are also from scientists, lawyers from all across the country, medical students, architects, tourism stakeholders, small business owners, and a large variety of people who have come together and decided that they want to speak up and provide their perspective. So there have been a number of people who have been making these representations. And also we've been coordinating with groups such as the Let India Breathe campaign, which we will be hearing from Yash shortly, who's been doing really good work on helping us circulate emails and petitions, and other groups like Fridays for Future India, etc. In fact, the campaign was helped to go viral by a change.org petition that was signed by over 70,000 people. So the campaign has been trying its best to organize and participate in protests, because good old protesting is pretty effective. And apart from that, we've been undertaking tweet storms regularly on social media so that others all across the country and the world can participate as well. So that is what the campaign is doing. Now to talk about the plans for the immediate future. Now, as of today, the young people have submitted representations. They've inwarded letters to the government of Goa with certain demands. These demands are simple: revoke the projects, and then we can have a discussion. Okay, we do not want any further discussions where false promises and empty promises are made, which don't really mean anything in reality. So that is one of the demands. And for the purpose of meeting these demands, the young people have asked the government of Goa to direct the forest department not to issue any further orders and to direct the Forest Department to essentially return these proposals to the project promoters because it is not in public interest. Now, to talk a little bit about how you could get involved and how you could help us out. Goa is a really small state. We're a few people living here, and we need as many voices as we can possibly get. So I would urge you to follow us on social media. We have accounts on Twitter, a couple of accounts on Instagram and Facebook. We also post a lot of information and updates about the projects and what's really happening on the ground. So you could really keep yourself informed like that. In addition, if you want to get involved through your art, feel free to send us your art and you could offer any other skills that you might have to the campaign because we need it. If you want to get more involved, we do need volunteers. So feel free to join us. You could email us from savemolegoa@gmail.com and tell us how you'd like to get involved. So that's definitely an option. But I think the most important thing we could all do is keep this conversation going. We'd like to keep this conversation going. We need to talk about sustainable development because these projects are being sold. They're being marketed as being in public interest and as being development, while in reality they are destruction. So we really want to keep the conversation going. We'd like you to lend your voice to essentially make ours stronger and help the Goa government realize that it is not just people of Goa, but the whole of India and the whole world that's watching. So that's what I would say you could do to help us right now.
Wonderful. Thank you, Carleen.
Thank you so much.
That gives us a lot to think about. And of course, there are questions coming in. Feel free to drop your questions into the chat box. We'll have a question and answer session after all three speakers have shared their talk with us. I'd like to now invite Claude. Claude Alvarez of the Goa Foundation is a renowned environmentalist and director of the Goa Foundation, an environmental monitoring group. He's editor of Other India Press and director of the Organic Farming Association of India. Claude, please share an overview of the issue of coal in the country, the future of mining, why should we as citizens be concerned, and what can we really do to help? Claude?
Yeah, see, because the issues are very complex, I've seen that Abhijit Prabhudesai is already there. So I will ask Abhijit to deal with the entire issue of coal and its real ramifications in the state and why it is such a big problem. And I will try to deal instead with all the three projects in the wildlife sanctuary and
yes.
what they actually mean, because for a public these issues can be very confusing. There is the issue of the coal hub, which is linked to the Marmagua Port Trust, which is not at all anywhere close to the wildlife sanctuaries. So it's a project of a port which wants to bring in the coal because the iron ore business has collapsed, and now they want to substitute that with coal, and they want to take it from 5 million, 10 million to 51 million tons. So I mean, it's a sort of an insane project. The people who planned it should be actually locked up somewhere, but they are still loafing around freely, and that's our problem. So I'm not dealing with the MPT and so on because I think Abhijit is probably well versed with all that. But the three projects are dealing with the sanctuary in three different places. What we have been constantly saying is that you want to fragment the sanctuary. Have you asked the permission of the wildlife? Because the wildlife laws are very strict. And as per the wildlife laws, the chief wildlife warden, who is actually the guardian of the wildlife, has to make a very important decision whether the project that has been sanctioned is in the interests of wildlife and is in the interests of improvement of the wildlife habitat. These are the 2 points on which he can give his opinion. The unfortunate thing is that our chief wildlife warden, the first chief wildlife warden, Richard D'Souza, when the project for the railway came in, particularly in 2013, he wrote up a note saying that don't be silly, we can't put up this project here. It's going to destroy the wildlife and the biodiversity and everything. So then the environment minister also supported him and said, no, we are also not going to approve. And then Mr. Manoj Parrikar, who died in 2019, he also wrote in the file that, this project, is no go. It's got no, sense as far as Goa is concerned. It has no meaning for Goa. And therefore, we are rejecting the permission. So on record, there is a very detailed note from the Chief Wildlife Warden saying no, giving his reasons for no, and it's supported by the Environment Minister and the Chief Minister of the state. This is on file in 2013. Now, these guys never die. These like, the phoenix, they keep rising. They came back in 2016, Parrikar was not there anymore, and they brought in this new proposal which said basically, now at that time we had separated the lines in two different places, but now we are making a parallel lines. And so please give us the permission. But this time they went to the government. They didn't go to the forest department, they went to the government. And the chief secretary and everybody said that this is a national project, it should go through and all that sort of thing. And because on those grounds, the new chief wildlife warden also came and said that, yeah, it's a national project and gave the permissions. Now we say that, whatever it is, national projects and it's the protection of wildlife is a national project. Wildlife protection is a part of the Constitution of India. Constructing a railway project is not part of the Constitution of India, and certainly not putting up a high tension line. These are not given in the Constitution that we are compulsorily meant to do these things. But you are compulsory duty bound as a fundamental duty to see that wildlife is protected. There is a Wildlife Act, so there is a Constitution and there is a Wildlife Act which says you don't touch these places unless you can prove that whatever you are going to do is going to be like you want to build, for example, a water place there for them to come and bring. You may need a JCB to excavate some mud, whatever that, those sort of things. But your interest is in the wildlife India, because please note that in the whole country, 1.4 billion people, we keep only 4% of the land mass available for wildlife in protected areas, only 4%. Now, even that 4%, we are saying, no, we should be allowed to cut and dismember in 3 or 4 places only for public interest or national interest or whatever it is. And you're really not seriously considering the fact that wildlife are a part of us, they are a part of this country, part of the traditions of this country, and we will not survive without our wildlife. We need them there, we need our biodiversity, they are interlinked, they are linked, biodiversity and wildlife and all that sort of thing, and therefore you don't touch these things. These are what you call no-go areas. You don't touch them. You take your bazaar and your trains and your transmission lines somewhere else. But if you want to design some project, you please note, you first say, is there a wildlife sanctuary or is there forest? And if there is, then you say, Baba, let's use our human intelligence. That's what we are meant for. We call ourselves human beings. It was to be able to design projects so that we don't destroy. But if you are trying to say that, no, we've got to destroy because of public interest, then I don't think you're using your brains at all. Any project in this country can be done with an alternative alignment. Maybe it's a little bit more expensive. It looks like it's more expensive because you're paying out more cash. But when you look at the total environment cost, the damage to the wildlife habitat and all those other type of things, and those costs are never included in your calculations, then we are really losing considerably. So in relation to the double tracking of the railway line, the Chief Wildlife Warden said no, his opinion till today has not been reviewed, it has not been overthrown, and therefore it still stands, and the law is very clear. So we have gone to the High Court of Goa Foundation and said that look here, these people are planning this insane project in violation of the Wildlife Protection Act, and you please see whether this is proper, and please examine and please listen to our arguments and pass appropriate orders. And then the second project is a national highway, and as Carleen showed, that in Karnataka side, you are saying that we will stick to 12 meters in the Anchi and Dandeli National Park. But in Goa, you say we will go to 42 meters. Now, anybody who has gone on that road from Mole to Angod, to move to Belgaum from Goa, will know that this is an extremely steep gradient, very, very hazardous terrain. So these guys, are really not going to be able to expand the national highway. What they want to do is actually create a new road on a viaduct through the wildlife sanctuary. Now, this is an even greater and more insane idea than even the doubling of the railway. The railway, for example, if you look at quantities, they're required to move, according to their own technical report, 1.8 million cubic meters of mud to put that second railway track. Now, nobody in his right mind will allow you to move 1.8 million cubic meters of mud and put it for embankments and this and that and straighten it out and take from the tunnels and all that sort of thing. That's simply not possible. In the case of these guys, the PWD guys, they want to construct 42 because the terrain is so bad that you can't really expand. Because if you expand, one side you'll be cutting right into the hill, and the other side you'll be falling down a steep, slope right down to your grave. So what they have designed is for 60% of that highway, they have abandoned the old highway, and now they are going to create a viaduct. So for 60% of the road is actually a new road, it's not an expansion. It's a new road that you're constructing on a viaduct. And basically that 60% of the viaduct will join up with 40% of the old road, so that you increase the speed of vehicles going through the wildlife sanctuary instead of doing the reverse, which is when you're going through a wildlife sanctuary, you've got to dim your lights and you've got to reduce your speed. You don't create a facility for people to enhance their speed. So this is again another stupid proposal. I don't know most of these guys which education system they have come from, and maybe this Macaulay system in which nobody uses their bloody brains, and they just do what is, money is there, this project is there, we do it and we destroy. And most of these guys are like me. I mean, they are part of my generation. They should be literally locked up in museums because they are not fit for the modern age and not fit for a planet which is suffering from climate change. And that brings me to the third project, which is this high tension line 400 kV. Now, last time they tried to take a 400 kV line through the Western Ghats was from Kaiga. And they had such a big fight, all the environmental NGOs and the people put such a huge fight that the Power Grid Corporation and the Karnataka government in fact signed a memorandum saying that this is the last project we will ever attempt to put across the Western Ghats, because we don't want this type of opposition again, because the opposition ruins all the economic feasibility, everything gets delayed, there's a lot of agitation, a lot of money, a lot of this, everything. So they said, we are not going to do this time. We are not going to do such a project ever again. Now, the Power Grid Corporation designs 4 alternative alignments, not going through the sanctuary and not going through the forest. They take the existing line coming from Kolhapur to Goa, and they said, we'll double this line, so that there is no great problem. Now, after all this, why this Vedanta guy comes in suddenly with this, and puts in this project, which goes bang across the Western Ghats, and worse than that, goes bang across the Mole Wildlife Sanctuary, and then goes across the forests of Goa. One section alone is 18,000 trees for which they got a permit last week to cut. 18,000 trees. This is outside the forest area. Now, this is sheer nonsense. The total number of trees for the Tamnar high tension line from Karnataka to Goa is 105,000 trees in the Western Ghats. Now, again, this is another piece of insanity. We are being ruled by people who are totally insane. And that's why I'm glad that these youngsters have come, because they are not listening to all these, arguments about something being good for their country and for the public interest. And they're saying that the interest of Goa is the public interest. The survival and integrity and beauty of Goa is the public interest. That is the national interest. And similarly with the wildlife, this is the national interest. We are duty bound to protect our wildlife sanctuaries, and we will not allow them to be destroyed. Whatever economic arguments you bring up or whatever it is, you use them for your own discussions in your own chambers, but you, on the streets, you come and tell us, how dare you not try to knock down more than 1 lakh trees only for one transmission line. And if you look at the 3 projects as they are going through the wildlife sanctuary, that's 50,000 trees. 50,000 trees, only a madman would allow anybody to slaughter 50,000 trees in a wildlife sanctuary. But that's simply not possible. So That's why the whole country is in an outrage, and that's why we're having this meeting, and that's why I'm hoping that we will one day immobilize this entire, all the three projects. As Carleen says, the demand is not negotiable, that we will allow this year and allow that. The demand is you cancel all the three. Otherwise, we will make your life miserable. We will ensure that you are not able to function. We will ensure that you will not be able to cut one single tree down, because we'll be there on the path, and we will don't mind going to jail, because today COVID is like jail. Most of us are stuck up in the houses anyway with nothing to do. So let's go and sit in another jail somewhere and do some social distancing there, and continue our discussions in and let the police feed us and whatever it is. But our inspiration today is going to be the farmers movement. What
Thank
the
you.
farmers are doing is so tremendous that if all the activists and all the youngsters learn how these farmers who are there on the road, looking after themselves, looking after their interests, if you can only get that, if we get that into our systems, then we will be able to do something. I think I've said enough, no, Sonali. Now
Thank you, Claude. That we're certainly happy. I think you're riling us all up, but for a good cause, and we understand the numbers when you put it like that. It's really difficult to comprehend. So that's like an entire chunk of, a lot of tree lovers among the participants here, but everybody also now understands that the importance of biodiversity. That is our future, right? So we'll move now to Yash Marma of Let India Breathe, and he is a Mumbai-based writer and founder of Let India Breathe. It's an environmental communications collective that mobilizes support to preserve India's natural beauty. Yash, can you please share what Let India Breathe does? What are the current issues you are looking at, including Save Mole, and your future plans, and how can we help? Yash, please.
Thanks so much, Sonal and all of you for having me here. And I really have to say this. I'm very glad I'm in a way sharing stage with obviously Claude and Carleen, but also Father Fraser. When I was a student, I used to always go to Malhar and other fests at Xavier's and learn so much. It's a pleasure indeed.
I would have to say the same thing. Father Fraser, you have a lot of fans in the audience.
I think in Mumbai and across the country, not only in this audience, but yes. Let India Breathe, basically we started 2.5 years ago. And when we started back then, we were trying to protect the Mahim Nature Park. I'm sure all of you know how it was going to be, in a way being taken over by the Slum Rehabilitation Authority. What we do is we just make sure we get all the right data first, and we target, okay, these are the people who are supposed to be targeted. For example, back then we targeted the Chief Minister, the Environment Minister, our 2B young Environment Minister, Aditya Thackeray, back then also was targeted. So what we do is send them mails, annoy the head out of them, and make sure they come out and speak. And that is exactly what happened back then. And I think in a way, in the past 2.5 years across the country, this formula has worked for various campaigns, and we are glad. But what happens next is very important, right? So then we keep following up with them. We make sure that, the people who are, the local people keep sending us important and correct data. And then we take that and take it to the rest of, the country and the world, and so on and so forth. Our involvement with the Mole campaign, our involvement with the Mole campaign has been from at least June. Initially when we, the entire world was trying to stay home and stay safe and all that jazz, the ministry was clearing projects after projects online. They were clearing. There's a thing called the National Board of Wildlife, and they had their virtual meetings, and kept going on and clearing a lot of projects. And when we got to know this, we realized, okay, more and more people need to know about it. So back then we started a mailing campaign where thousands of people from across the country mailed to the people who form the Wildlife Board, as well as obviously the environment minister. And now again, since the past 2 months, we've been doing this. I think whatever Kalin and Claude they have covered a lot of statistics and a lot of things that that have happened, as well as that can be done. But one thing, some tiny things that we should do is talk about this issue at our family table, right? In our office circles, with our cousins, with people who know, can perhaps influence more than 5 to 10 people. Like, it could be in a parish, in a small school, in a college, and so on and so forth. We have to be very strategic, because the people we are fighting against are, they have their humongous infrastructure with them. Lots of money, lots of advertisements, lots of social media influencers who have, like, millions of followings. They will just go on and tweet, pro government. So with our little armies, we can really bring a lot of difference, because they are real people and we know real people. And when we talk to, five each, I'm not saying I will go today and talk to 5,000 people. If I can talk to even 5 people who don't know about the issue, I think I can bring a lot of change. But then what next? They talk, they learn about it. What next? For example, people who are on social media, they really need to follow the Save Mole, campaign across social media handles. If you are not on, say, Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, get your children to follow them. Get your other younger folks in your family or in your circle to follow them. And they don't have to follow for the sake of it. Go and read about it. Ask them to question also, because what happens is, as ambassadors of the movement, we, all of us, need to know all the facts correctly, right? Like, for example, what are the what is the CEC? Like, we will talk about things like NBWL and CEC and EIA and all these, jargons, but we need to know what are these. What does the FAC do? How exactly what the NBWL did or the National Board of Wildlife did? How is it wrong? Why is it wrong? How many trees? Which are the species that are going to be affected? How big is the area? For example, imagine this, friends. In Mumbai, we shouted so much and so high, and like the entire country was talking about a 33-hectare patch of land in RA in Goregaon. Why can't we do this for Goa? Why can't we have the entire country, even the world, speak about this? Because it not only affects the environment, the people, it affects the entire economy of Goa in a way. And if the demographic, changes of a place, many things go haywire, right? So we need to understand this, that it's a very important socio-political issue, as well as obviously an emotional and an environmental issue. And friends, like Claude also mentioned and Kalin also mentioned, this is not just one. For example, we did not only take one part of the out of the 3 projects and spoke about it. We spoke about all 3. Why? Because they are all interconnected. Similarly, I would like to say that it's not only about this particular project in these 3 projects in Goa, but similarly, thousands of such projects are going across the country, and we are all interconnected in a way. So being vigilant and speaking up more about these issues will ultimately change the entire scenario around us. Like, for example, the politicians in Maharashtra have in a way become a little more conscious about environmental issues, although they are also reclaiming the reclaiming the sea for a coastal road. There are many hypocrisies there, but some change is happening, right? And that will happen only when all of us together start talking about these issues more and more. And one very important part of this has to be speaking outside our immediate circle or comfortable echo chambers. What we all consciously or subconsciously end up doing is we talk to people who are going to nod to us, right? But we should also go and talk to people who are not agreeing with us, because we need to know why they think that way, right? And I think that has happened brilliantly, not only with the Save Mole campaign, but also the RA campaign. If someone says abuses or does something like that on our social media handles, we don't abuse them back. We try to ask them, hey, why do you feel this project is okay? Or why do you feel lakhs of trees cutting down for the benefits of these capitalists, like Adani or Vedanta or whoever is okay. So I think all these things we should go on and do. And frankly, being I mean, now I'm in Mumbai, but back then when the campaign started, I was in Bangalore. It's really important for us to support the local movements in Goa. For example, the students or campaigns like Goan Polso Naka. We should read more and more about them, and push the content in other circles. And it's very important for all of us to know that there is something called the public trust doctrine. The government of the day feels that they own the land and they own the people and they own this country, but it's not true. The reason they have to give out advertisements to ask our permissions is because we own all of it. And they are just guardians, and they will keep changing every 5 years or whatever. So they need to know that, hey, you can't just do this and get away with this. That's why it's important to also speak to the political class. And with campaigns like these and the brilliant mobilization that has happened in Goa to talk to politicians, I think the narrative is changing. But I think we should take it one step further and try to do this everywhere. Sonal, I'm done, I think. But if there's anything specific you want to speak about, I'll be more than happy.
Thank you, Yash. That's wonderful. Thank you, all three speakers. And we have some questions coming in on chat. I'd like to come back to those questions and just give a quick 5-10 minutes to Abhijit Prabhudesai, since we have him here. Can I request Abhijit to just share some of your thoughts about what's going on and how we can help? Specifically, we're in Bandra, but we feel you, and do tell us what we can do. Abhijit?
Okay. Hi. So, I'm speaking on behalf of a lot of people. There are, tens of thousands of ordinary people in Goa, who come from, the ordinary background, working class, fishermen, farmers, tribals, etc., who are all actually the driving force behind this movement, this grassroots movement. And, it's an honor to speak on their behalf, and I hope I do justice to this enormous task. This struggle for Goa is not just something that's happening now. It's happening from at least as far as I know, from the time I got involved in 2006, when a regional plan was being made to convert the whole of Goa into something like Gurgaon or Noida, and which we are still fighting even today, 15 years down the road. Goa has been fighting these enormous battles against mining, against this real estate mafia, and now obviously coal. Okay, so in this bargain, what has happened is there is strengthening of grassroots movements across Goa, and there are struggles in every village across Goa to save the culture, the nature, and and there is this increasing grassroots awareness that's growing across the state, which really is something amazing. And as a part of this, actually the entire coal conspiracy got exposed actually starting in January 2016, when fishermen from living around Vasco city took up with NGT the issue of illegal dredging, which was initiated by Mr. Gadkari with a lot of fanfare, and which was eventually stopped by the NGT. And that's when this whole coal struggle started, because subsequent to that, the NGT forced the MPT to hold public hearings to disclose the details of all their projects. And that's when a whole lot of research was done by a number of people, and this entire jigsaw puzzle was put together, where it was suddenly clear to everybody that Goa was being converted into a coal hub. This is, so, we are looking at something huge here. Not just, it's the scale of the coal transportation is going to go up from today's 12 million tons to 137 million tons, 51 million tons to be handled at MPT, and the rest of it through our rivers. So, Goa's amazing Khazan lands, rivers, hundreds of villages situated along the river banks are all going to be converted into coal hubs. And that's something that's completely bizarre, completely unacceptable. And the amazing thing is that we have been able to go out to these villages, to meet the local communities, to empower them with knowledge and with with the right values. And this whole thing has been growing over the last 3-4 years. Unfortunately, using COVID, the government went ahead and tried to push these projects again, which was stalled for the last 4 years because of people's struggles. And today, the people have risen again, and risen again magnificently, I should say, to thwart their plans and to really put a spoke in the wheels and to stop this whole thing. And we are really fortunate to be a part of this. But we must remember, this is not just a struggle of Goa. It's not just a struggle of our country, our nation. It's a struggle of the whole globe. And it's a struggle for our survival, because global warming is basically a very big issue here, because all of these projects are related to increasing use of coal. If you remember, Claude was talking about MPT. MPT wants to expand from 12 to 50 million tons. And that can only happen if they can evacuate the coal. That means they can transport it from MPT, for which they need the double tracking and the highway. And so these are all related to coal. And the transmission lines, similarly, I'll quickly touch on that. The transmission lines is something which is completely dumb and against national policies, in fact, because Goa is supposed to install 360 megawatts of solar power in the next 2 years. Our total demand today is only 400 megawatts. There is absolutely no need of a transmission line at all, except to maybe fatten the wallets of the Vedantas and Adanis or whatever. But, so all these facts are in front of the people. People recognize these projects as being anti-national today. People recognize these projects as being anti-humanity today. And that's why the people are rising across Goa. And I know I'm probably exceeding my time, but very quickly to
go ahead.
To come to, what we all can do is, and especially people in Bombay, you've been told by Yash and Kalin before that, a number of things that can be done. But I think we should all get involved in these issues. I think we have to start standing up and questioning things, trying to understand how these social problems are being created and are being propagated. Because, and also you see, we've become kind of dumb and deaf in a way, and blind, because there is a continuous war always taking place. There's continuous violence in society, where the big corporations are continuously abusing, oppressing, the working classes. And this struggle is something that we all have to open our eyes to, and to fight it in our own areas. Of course, Goa needs all your help, but I think even taking up issues in your own communities, building up, communities, breaking down the walls of distrust that have been placed between us, between the people, and uniting people, getting them together. These are the tasks that we need to do, and and there is this huge urgency to this whole thing because of, this climate crisis, obviously. So yeah, it's time that all of us wake up and stand up and, and defend our children's future. Otherwise, there's nothing going to be left. So, these are times when I think that the bells are ringing for everybody. We need to all get out of our beds, get out of our stupor, and, and get involved in these issues. For Goa, what you could do is, we're going to obviously have some huge protests in the future, because the government is not listening to us. And you could probably, for example, have protests in solidarity in Mumbai. You could, of course, share this information across, all your friends and acquaintances and contacts across the place. You could also come and join us. We would welcome you guys in Goa to come and, be with us. And, yeah, and whatever other innovative ways you can think of in helping the struggle, please go ahead. We need all of that. And yeah, and there are a number of YouTube channels, and Goyat Kolso Naka, our organization's got one, and there are others too. And all of these you could please go to, visit, and share. And yeah, and yeah, thanks anyway for all the help and solidarity that you're already giving us. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Abhijit. And just to, I mean, we are 100 people right here, right now. So imagine if we just spoke to 5 more people within our circles, like Yash was saying, or just keeping the conversation going, like Carleen was saying. And of course, I would direct your attention to the chat, because Claude has answered some of the questions in the chat as well. So, plus, if you all have any more questions coming up, feel free to fill in the form. I've placed a link there. And keep in touch with us. Care for Creation is a small community of individuals who have answered the call of action by Pope Francis to care for creation. They are a group of volunteers who initiate activities to raise awareness on local, national, and global issues and solutions to environmental problems. So, in the recent past, we've done a bit of work on segregation of waste, on supporting the Save RA campaign, and many little things that we hope will really, snowball into a lot more kind of support coming in from everywhere. Even now, it's amazing that we have people from London and Kuwait and Dubai joining us. So I'm really, this is really fantastic if we can keep this moving. We're looking for, we have more questions, like people like Zalima have asked. Zalima, I think Claude has answered your question. I think there's a question for Carleen. Carleen, could you please repeat the email for contacting you?
Okay, absolutely. It's SaveMollem that's SAVEMOLLEMGOA @gmail.com. If someone could type it out in the chat, would be useful, actually. I'll do that.
I'm doing it.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Thank you so much.
SaveMollem @gmail.com.
Yeah.
Okay. And the parallel that a lot of people are drawing, Claude started it with the farmers movement in Delhi. So it's quite possible that we next all come out onto the streets. And because I'm sure all of you, when you close your eyes and if I tell you, think of the place you would like to be, it's on the beach in Goa. So I'm sure you're all just dreaming. But close your eyes and think again. If we let this happen, you'll be sitting on a beach, all right, but you'll be sitting on coal. So think about that. That's something we should take with us home tonight. May I request Father Gerard if he would like to add a few words before I invite our colleague Marissa to give the vote of thanks, or even Father Fraser. Can I invite one of you or both of you to just round up the talk today, please?
What I liked was Marissa will give a vote of thanks at the end, but what I liked was some simple ways in which we can all get involved. Sometimes we think of big things we have to do. Carleen has suggested simple things like art and letter writing and emails, and tweeting. And Yash has also suggested, a very positive way of going about, where you speak with your family, speak in your workplace, and even speak to people who don't agree with you. Keep the dialogue going. And I think even and Claude has been speaking the same thing. So I think that's the whole thing. Start small and let the movement grow. I think I'm taking that home. Let us start small and let it just grow in the small little things, and we join our forces together finally whenever the time is right.
Right. Father Fraser? Okay. Father Fraser. I'll just take maybe a few more. I'm looking down the questions. People are, sending in supportive messages. We should start a revolution in our country. We need to have a WhatsApp group of like-minded people. Talk of cutting trees.
Sonali, can't hear you.
While Sonal, I think something happened over there. I could ask Marissa if she could give the vote of thanks, and then Sonal could close up maybe at the end. Marissa?
Yes, Father.
Could
You can hear me?
Yes, yes.
Miss Colleen de Mello, Mr. Claude Alvarez, Mr. Yash Marva, and Mr. Abhijit. We, the Care for Creation group of St. Peter's Church, Bandra, are speechless. Our gratitude to all four of you for sharing your heart out to save our beautiful world of Moler, which is under threat of devastation. Ms. de Mello, thank you for enlightening us on the 3 infrastructure projects, the campaign, various webinars, and how to help out. We hope to follow social media, Facebook, and get involved in some of the projects or as volunteers. Mr. Alvarez, thank you for briefing us on the role of the government and the wildlife protection in the Constitution of India and the involvement of the youngsters, which we hope will carry on. Mr. Marva and Mr. Abhijit for giving us various options and suggestions and innovative ways to help save Moler. We are sure our good Lord will hear our prayer for saving Moler, which will bring peace and joy not only to the Goans, but all Indians and tourists who visit Goa. We thank all the participants for attending this Zoom meeting. God bless and good night.
Thank you so much, everybody, for being here today. And we hope to keep the conversation going as suggested by y'all. And Sonal has put on one of the tweets, I can't find it right now, or you can fill up the Google form so we can keep in touch with you.
Just put it again. I'll just put it again.
Yeah, just put it again, Sonal.
That's the form to keep in touch with us. You can fill in your details. And Father, please save the chat. I got cut off, so I don't have the chat.
I'll save it.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good
God bless
night.
you.
Dream of Goa.
Thank you. Great initiative. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Father.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you
Thanks,
so much,
Sonali.
everybody.
Thanks, guys. Good night.
Thank you so much, everybody. This movement is really inspiring us. We hope to have a safe Goa, and we hope the whole thing goes the way.
That's the thing. Bye.
Thank you, Zidan. How old are you?
Really?
I'm 12 years old.
He has
Wonderful.
put some very interesting comments inside. If you read his chat, at least 2 or 3 has put. Thanks, Zidan.
Thank you, Zidan. Lovely to
Inspiring.
hear from you.
Bye. Bye. Thank you all so much.
Bye.
Bye.